As you know, the bishops gathered this week in Leeds for the Bishops' Conference meeting, and a key concern for us was how we help Catholics, but others too, make their considerations in preparation for voting.
One of your first points, actually, surrounds the word integrity and telling the truth. That's a point that's been brought up several times over campaigning, not just this general election. But there is a need to be responsible with language, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, and using language that is not in any way inflammatory or abusive, that is actually positive, that promotes the policies of the person rather than the personality of the person, and that really goes to the heart of what it is to seek the best for everyone in our country. That's what we're about.
Now, obviously, there's a mention of the United Kingdom's place in Europe. Clearly, that dominates proceedings. We're not telling people how to vote, of course, in that sense, but we are talking about issues. What would we say about Europe at this point?
We would say that the Church doesn't take a stance on the position of Europe. However, we believe that whatever the ultimate developments are with respect to Europe, the United Kingdom must remain to be an international partner across Europe and across the world.
Also, I noticed the words peace, security, responsible stewardship, not just of the planet, but across the board, really, and we will talk about those individual issues. Now, again, we're not talking party politics, but we are talking things of concern for Catholics in England and Wales. I've got a long list here from the unborn child, and then at the other end of the spectrum, care for the dying. Those on the margins, refugees, those in poverty. Tell us a little bit about the bullet points in the statement that really help people perhaps hold their candidate to task when it comes to deciding who to vote for.
I think it's important to say that this is not an exhaustive list, so there are other things that also are of concern. These are some primary concerns that came to light for us in our discussions. And through them all is the thread of the dignity of the person, the dignity of human life, where in all its forms, whether that's the unborn child, the mother who faces the challenge of an unplanned pregnancy, whether that's the elderly, the sick, the dying, the terminally ill, and our desire to give them a compassionate care, which can never be answered by assisted suicide or euthanasia, or whether it's looking at the plight of the poorest in our society, whether it's looking at the care for migrants and refugees in our society. When it's building up peace in our society, knife crime is a big challenge for us. Yeah. We don't mention that explicitly in this statement, but we discuss that too. So all these matters, the thread of them is how do we make sure that nobody in our society is left behind, that the weakest, the poorest, everyone, their dignity is respected and their human flourishing is promoted. That's what we're about. That's what we're concerned about.
Just to touch upon one or two of those other things, we've just had Red Wednesday, talking about religious freedom and persecution of Christians, but not just Christians, others as well. What do we say about freedom of belief?
Well, we say that there should be respect for freedom of religion and belief, that everyone has a right to live their creed in security and in peace, and that there needs to be an appropriate respect for the beliefs of every person.
Now, I could talk to you about church teaching on marriage and family life. There's a statement there talking about how obviously we should cherish marriage, recognising the essential place of the family in the service of life and of society. These are sort of key components of Catholic teaching. So perhaps instead of asking you about those, because you can find them online, cbcw.org.uk, I'll ask you, what would you say to someone that wants to ask these questions of their candidate, but maybe feels that it's a really difficult thing to do?
I think it is a difficult thing to do, and I think it's that there are lots of difficult challenges facing us. But I would say to them, have a confidence and have a courage and speak from your heart. And really look at what your candidates are saying as well, not just the party, but look at your candidates. And put these questions in a respectful way and give them the opportunity to respond in a respectful way.
And not to ask you about any particular party or their manifesto, but from a personal perspective, and I'm sure from the perspective of many others, this time round, it's quite a difficult one. It's sort of, do I vote for this one? Do I vote for that one? Do I vote for the other one? What would you say to someone that is thinking of not voting because nothing quite lines up for them?
I think that is a reality for many people, that they feel that perhaps no candidate fully respects their views and their beliefs. I would say do your very, very best to exercise your democratic right. People have died for the right to vote in our country, and it's very important that everyone exercises that right.
And obviously you conclude by saying that you call upon all Catholics to pray for the well-being of our society. So that would be the thread, would it? Running through, care for the vulnerable, marriage and family, religious freedom, custodianship of the environment, education and, pro-life issues as well. Is that the thread?
I think the thread is the dignity of the person, which leads to the well-being of society.